Good morning, everybody. It's Martin, the sales strategist, and I wasn't seeing a video playing then, so hopefully you guys were. We might have had a glitch. Hopefully that's the glitch in the system. But today we are joined by Rohan Pryor from ES4U, and Rohan is Director of, obviously, ES4U Electrical Services. Welcome to the event this morning, Rohan.
Hi, mate. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. And it's good. In typical tradie style, I get a text a couple of hours ago. They said, hey, look, I'm on a job. I might be a few minutes late. So you just scooted into the chair with seconds to spare, ripped your high vis off, and we're away laughing. So this is going to be fun. So, Rohan, obviously we're here to chat sales, but we'll do that a little bit later on. I'd just like you to introduce your business to everybody out there. Like, what is it that you do? I know you've got Innes as your partner. So just explain a little bit about what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, mate. As I say, I've got a business partner in us. We're obviously an electrical contracting company in Sydney who help our clients obviously finish the electrical portion of their projects, whether that's directly for a builder or a direct client. Doesn't really phase us too much. We do work from schools, pubs, clubs, office fit outs and industrial. So there's not much we haven't seen that we can't do. But we always enjoy a challenge. I think that's what keeps us growing, is that we take on unique projects or different projects, because the experience you gain out of that obviously helps you increase your business, as we have over the last 7 years.
Yeah, totally. So how did you guys get involved in the electrical trades business to start with?
Well, I obviously, Innes obviously started back home in New Zealand. He's originally born and bred over there. But myself, obviously, just as normal people do, started an apprenticeship when I was younger. Fell into an apprenticeship when I was in year 12. Didn't really know what I was going to do, but took it on. Really enjoyed, I guess, the start of it but didn't know where I wanted to head with it. And to tell you the truth, never thought I would run a business. After I finished my trade, travelled a fair bit. Took odd jobs on here and there, and then sort of got a position at a company as a project manager, and that's probably where I fell in love with what I was doing. I love the organisation and the satisfaction of completing a job from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably one specific job in particular that sort of changed the direction I headed. Was I got a job with a company back in the day called TEG, and in the 2-year period from when I joined to when I finished, that company actually went into liquidation.
Mm-hmm.
It was a range of things that felt like the partnership fell apart after the year that when I started there, and then the owner that took over sort of made, I guess, poor decisions and poor leadership that saw that company fall into a really big hole. So I think for me personally as a business owner, I couldn't have had a better apprenticeship for me to learn how to run a business, because I saw how easily one can actually fall apart, and one that when I joined had so much going for it, that the way it fell apart was pretty drastic.
Yeah, right. And so, from an electrical trades perspective, you've got there. You guys specialize, and you would have had a choice whether it was domestic or commercial. So, why did you go into the commercial space, not so much domestic?
Well, we still do domestic. We probably run at about 30% domestic, 70% commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But Innes and I prefer the domestic purely based on we love the large scale projects, the involvement in them, the working with the different trades, the duration. The projects last from 3 to 4 months, and the builders you work with, larger scale. We just seem to enjoy that work, and we find that that's more of our niche of what we're good at and how we can organise ourselves better, coming from that background when we going through our trades that way.
Yeah, right. Now, a lot of trades have been hit hard by COVID, and you were mentioning earlier that your revenue fell off a cliff there at the start of COVID, and you're getting it back now. But what have been the biggest challenges, or I guess you could say the biggest challenge or the biggest learnings that you guys have made as a business as you navigated your way through such a uncertain time?
I guess a couple of ones were obviously where our products have gone in the last 2 years. Product pricing, making sure you have the right suppliers involved in your company, because that can be key. When with the inflation we've seen the last 8 months, with things doubling, having the right suppliers can be key of you going basically into bankrupt or not being able to afford to do the jobs you're doing. And the other one is the right sales techniques to be able to win over a customer based on who you are, not what a figure value is on what you've put on a piece of paper. Because the biggest thing I've seen the last 8 months is where people are willing to go to win a job to keep their company afloat or keep their boys busy. And when you're winning jobs on so low margins and inflation's increasing, how can you steady a ship properly?
It's not easy. And, when we were working together, we were talking about the fact that, the big tier one companies were coming down to play in your market, and the smaller domestic guys were coming up into your market. So your market got really, really crowded very, very quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's sort of, when you're tendering a job and there's 15 or 16 other electrical contractors on the same job, it's sort of, it sort of, hits you hard. How do you anticipate to win that without having to be the cheapest person on the job?
So it's a good opening, I guess, to because there's going to be quite a few trade businesses that are either watching this now or are going to be watching it on repeat later on. And the tender process, from a sales perspective, is something that a lot of people will just throw plenty of paint against the wall and hope something sticks. So you raised it then about how have you been able to win tenders when there are 15 people all tendering, lowest quotes? What's the secret, Rohan?
Secret. That's an interesting question you actually asked. I don't think there is any set secret. I think the way I sort of plan is obviously you have to get to the table. So you have to be realistic about your pricing to make sure that your pricing isn't a mark. You understand the project very well, and the client knows you understand the project very well, so they feel extremely comfortable with you. But getting yourself to the table is key. So you got to be competitive on your pricing to at least be top 3, top 5, or at least have an existing relationship with that client. So I think having good suppliers and suppliers that give you good pricing is definitely key. Establishing that initial engagement with your client you're working with, so they have that relationship with you, so they already know who you are. And then when getting to that client within that final meeting and tender process, it's all about framing your conversation to make sure you're putting yourself on top, so they know you are the contract. I guess they want to choose, but at least getting yourself in that market where they want to sort of get in a period of negotiation with you as well.
Yeah, right. And that's really, really, really great. And you mentioned framing then, and that framing is a big thing that I talk about as well. So when you're talking about framing your business, what do you mean?
Framing it where they feel you're at the top of your game, where they know when you're on their site, their project has no issues and it's going to get completed to 100% of what is documented or on a specification. Because as we've discussed before, an electrical issue is something you don't see until it either happens or at the end of a job. And the issue with that is the damage that can cause, whether it's a damage to a build or someone's health, can be quite alarming. I don't think people can appreciate that enough sometimes about the dangers with electrical. So establishing yourself that what you do is at the safest manner, but completing their job to an on-time schedule, and framing yourself as an industry leader, basically.
Yeah, and I guess because what you do, if you don't get it right, you could kill somebody. It's that simple, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, in this day and age, yeah, you're exactly right. Electricity is something you don't see. That's the scariest thing about it, and it still gives me shivers up my spine. That's the thing. It's one of the most powerful things on a construction site, and you won't see it until 20 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, but I guess that's the challenge you face, because A, you don't see it, but B, during the construction phase and afterwards, a lot of what you do is hidden away. It's hidden in the walls or hidden in conduit or away. And
Yeah.
so I guess that's part of the reason why people just look at what you do and just try and, lowest price, right? But I know you guys aren't the lowest price. I know you guys offer a premium service. So how do you articulate that in the sales process? Because you're not the cheapest tender, but yet you win them anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's establishing that trust between you and the client, establishing that you are not going to be at the root of their problem on a construction site. Innes and I create a business to provide opportunity and freedom for people, and that goes from our employees to our clients, contractor suppliers, and even hopefully one day our families. So the policies we work on is if you can keep everyone satisfied within, or have a culture within your business that people want to work to, they're willing to push harder for you. So when the look for you on site is greater, sorry, mate, sort of got myself a bit off track there.
No, this is great, because a lot of the people and a lot of the businesses that I interview on this all talk about culture and the importance of culture. And so what you're basically saying is, even in the tender process, from a perspective of how you deliver your services, that culture is something that you really focus down on, is important for you guys.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, that's exactly right. Culture and leadership are a big play, because if people can see people are enjoying coming to work for you every day, they want to work for you. And I want the builder to be satisfied that every time we're coming on his site, their team is excited to have us on their project. Because if you can create that status within a construction company, that's where you get repeat business. And a big thing in our industry is word of mouth and repeat business. Most of the builders we've worked for 5 years, and we'll continue to grow with them because of the culture and leadership we've shown within our business to be able to continually work with them today.
Yeah, right. Awesome. Now, we were talking off air earlier, and we were talking about the project sizes that you guys are getting now, and we're going to stay away from naming specific projects for obvious reasons, for confidentiality reasons. Yep. But you guys are kind of in that project range, which is $500,000 to $1 million projects, is kind of your specialty, I guess.
Yeah.
And you were talking to me earlier, something that I'd really like to talk to you about, because I think it happens for a lot of businesses. And you were talking about, when you win a $700,000 business and then you end the project and then you got to look for another one. So just explain that. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper into that, because it's an issue that a lot of companies have, right?
Yeah, I guess in the past, we've always, when we're taking those projects on, we get a bit lost in the project, and you sort of let that tender process drop off, and that's what we've learned. We learned that in the hard way probably 2 or 3 years ago. We learned that the hard way, and it probably burned us for a couple of months afterwards. But we've sort of established the business in a better position now and grown it in a better position, where basically Innes will handle majority of the operations and projects, and I've completely stepped away from that portion of works just to focus on sales and tendering and building our workflow. Because the thing is, most of the jobs I tender now, they probably won't get off the ground until 6-7 months down the track. So I've established, by re-engineering figures, I've established what I basically need to tender a month, and I try and get to that mark every month. Is basically I'll probably win down the track 20 or 30% of that work, which is what basically, if I win 20 or 30% of that amount of work, it keeps a steady flow within our business for the next couple of months. And as long as I'm hitting those marks, it means in 3 or 4 months down the track, as you say, we won't be hit of, oh shit, now what's next? What's the next job now? We'll already have that established. And I think that's key for growth, and knowing when to take those jobs on. It's hard to pinpoint, because you can't take those jobs on and not have the employees, because then you're going to let someone down. And that's the biggest thing in this industry. As soon as you let someone down, you could lose multiple contracts over it.
Yeah. And see, this is all about pipeline management, pipeline sales, because that's what this is, right? And a lot of small businesses, and even myself, when I had my equipment business a few years ago, I would do the same thing. I'd have a good month, and then the next month you'd be delivering everything, and you'd just be focused on that. And then you come back, and then sales had fallen in a heap. Oh shit, because you were focusing on delivering. And in your case, you were focusing on that. But now, by the sound of it, you are religious, and you're dedicated to doing a certain amount of tenders every month, which are going to convert at a certain conversion rate to give you the revenue, the ongoing revenue you need. And this is a habit that you have constantly, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's a habit where probably 2 years ago probably took on that habit, because we were getting to the size where we could take on that habit too. That was the key, was putting ourselves financially in a situation where that could be done.
Yeah. And I guess the message would be, even for businesses who haven't quite got there yet, from the scaling perspective, where Innes can do one thing and you can do another, for example, it's a matter of at least do something. Maybe allocate an hour a week, or 2 hours a week or 2 hours a fortnight, something's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I basically at the start was basically me sitting in the garage at night, making sure I got through what I need to get through to try and tender for the next couple of months over. And I fortunately had a great partner who she was pretty accommodating to that. She'd actually, when she was going to bed, she'd knock on the wall to say goodnight to me when I was working in there. Just quirky things like that, just to keep me motivated.
So, Rohan, let's talk sales process.
Yep.
So your sales process now. So let's just run through what your sales process is. We did a little bit of work together. We haven't worked a lot together, but we worked together for a month or two there. But what's the sales process look like to you now?
The process from start to finish, obviously, is getting that prior engagement with whoever you're tendering for. Now, fortunate enough for me, a lot of my tenders are for pre-existing clients or people that I have already met or known in the past. But it's always getting that prior engagement with them before you start the tender, whether that's through a phone conversation, Zoom, or a site meeting. Obviously, establishing the documents, having the second interview with the client. And the reason I say always have that second interaction with them, I always come up with a list of questions on the job, whether they're important or not important. And the reason is that to create status, so they understand what you're talking about when you're tendering, because they might get 4 or 5 prices, but how do they know in a market? How do they know which one is the prices can range from so different values, and they've got to make sure that everyone's allowing for everything. So I like to have that second engagement to be able to make sure I understand the documents and drawings. And obviously,
is that after the tender has been submitted or before?
No, that's always before. Just so and the reason I do that is because if I know where I stand with their business, if they're chasing me for the tender, I've done the right thing by establishing a status with them that they want to see my price to be able to put it into formalize it into their tender.
Great. So you have an initial meeting, then you have a follow-up meeting on site. What happens next?
Obviously, submission goes in next, which I always follow up with a phone call, so I can make sure I can establish they understand my price, and I try and list things as a project as a whole. So not only they compare that to my price, but everyone else's pricing, so they can see where I fall, because there's so many variances these days.
What do you mean by that?
Variances in the sense that the scale of different tenders they'll get for the electrical. I've always get calls about, this guy's 50 grand cheaper, this guy's 50 grand more expensive. Why is there such a difference? And I try and establish that list for them, so they have like a pre-checklist to make sure that they're qualifying their jobs properly, just to help assist. And as you say,
you'll actually provide the customer with a list of things that say, hey, look, when you're looking at a this is what a tender should include.
Yeah. So basically, and also make sure they're comparing apples to apples.
Awesome.
As we've always said, and as you've always spoken about, it's always creating that hierarchy of status to make sure you're the leader.
Totally. Okay, so you've submitted the tender, you've had a follow-up phone conversation. What happens next?
Look, after that, they go away and they go through their tender process, whether they take, we've had things that turn around in 2 weeks, we've had things that turn around in 6 months. But usually I'll follow, obviously there's always going to be a follow-up to see where they're at with their tender process, and if they're successful or not. And then after they are successful, it's about getting their engagement of where I currently sit within their business model. And then hopefully I've got myself in a position to be able to get brought to the table for a meeting regarding the project. And look, if you get to that stage, you're usually one of 3 contractors they're looking at. So that meeting is probably the most important, because you've got to create your status where you're not completely dropping your pants to win the job, but you're creating enough value that they want to proceed with you for the project.
And so this never would have happened to you, I'm sure, but you're in a tender meeting and they're saying, hey, look, Rohan, you're $50,000 too much. What can you do about that? What happens next?
Oh, mate, I think that I know you make a sly remark, but that probably happens every contract meeting I'm in. So it's trying to. It depends. Look, there's always key factors on where you go from there. It based on where you're situated as a business at the time or how you value what you do. So I don't like giving discounts. I will try and word that in a way where I can create value for them in the project rather than making it an initial dollar figure, because people willing to go down as low as they can, they just become a contractor that is going to go into a project and slam someone with variations at the end of the day. And we don't like to be a contract that does that. When a client signs a contract with me, they'll get value on their jobs. I'm not coming in there trying to redesign anything. I'm coming in to do a quality job. So they're not only they less satisfied, but hopefully their client is less satisfied enough that they get future work from it, which will in turn create more future work for ourselves.
Great. And that's what it's all about, right? Because even in a tender process, and you would probably find it as well, not that regularly does the lowest tender always win. Everyone thinks that the lowest tender wins, but there's so much more to a tender process than just the lowest price, right?
100%. The last, probably the last 5 meetings I've been to regarding final submissions, I've had a hit rate of 3 out of the 5, and I know in all those 3, we weren't the lowest price.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about, yes, they were existing clients, but I'm established with those clients to a point where they're willing to, spend that little extra users, and that's where you want to put yourself in a position where you can always guarantee a spot on their project because of the effort you put in for them. And the satisfaction they get out of using you on their sites. Great.
And so referrals, you mentioned, so referrals are great, and existing customers, that's awesome. Have you got to the stage of cold outreach and trying to contact potential new projects yet, or you're not there yet, or you don't need to?
At the moment, where we have in the last probably 6 months, we've reached out to 2 new clients we're trying to get heavily involved with. They're 2-tier construction companies, and that's basically mine and his mission is to become Sydney's electrical contractor for tier 2 construction companies. So we are trying to establish ourselves with more tier 2 companies. So we have reached out to 2 companies. There's probably 2 or 3 companies I'm trying to work with at the moment, trying to get onto their construction list. It's always a drawn out process because I've started tendering from in the last 6 months. So as I say, a tender today means a job 6 to 7 months down the track. So we're working on them. But as I said, it's about creating the status of them wanting to use you over existing contractors, but also making sure that they find the value in you.
So what's the key to that? Because I understand that, if you've got existing customers or referrals, you're winning the business there. But when it comes to you're now in a business where they don't know you, and you're actually trying to oust someone like yourself who has that relationship. So if there was another trade-related business out there that's listening to you right now, and you just said, these are the 2 or 3 key areas that I focus on, what would they be?
Making sure you're always going in, treating yourself as the prize. Making sure, I say, for me, it all comes down to how you frame what you're talking about. As I say, making sure you're the prize, establishing that you're a leader in your industry. How you do that is how you come up with a certain way you talk to them, and giving them reassurance that you understand everything they want. I think that's the biggest key I find in tender meetings is making sure that the builder making sure you understand exactly what they need on their sites from start to finish.
Yeah, because they're looking for someone that will lead them, not follow them, right? They want someone who can come on site and go, we've got this. We don't need to, we'll keep you in the loop. We'll let you know what's going on, but you don't have to look over our shoulder.
That's why we always, part of our process when we get a new job is reading documents and sending them a whole list of questions before we even get on site, because by doing that, you're establishing exactly what, A, you know what you're talking about, but B, you're ahead of the game on them. So you're constantly on them to get their job sorted, not them constantly on you to get their job sorted.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned the prize frame a couple of times. So what does the prize frame mean to you?
I guess the prize frame means to me is making sure you're number one, making sure that you're walking in there and they want to use you. You don't want to use them in a way. Making sure that they feel comfortable that you exactly know what you're doing and talking about. Because if you don't know what you're doing or what you're talking about, you're going to go in there and blurt out a whole bunch of crap, and they're going to find you out straight away.
That is very true. And the trade industry is difficult at the best of times, right?
And that's exactly right. And as I say, word of mouth is so key in our industry, because everything gets spoken about and everyone finds out anything about anyone. So as soon as you don't put yourself in that price situation, someone's going to find out about it, and then the next person's going to find out about it, and then it's just a non-flowing effect.
I don't know if the trade industry is like the industry I'm in, but the bad word spreads like wildfire, but the good word takes forever.
Oh, 100%. And that's the thing. You've got so many different. I've met so many different contractors that move in and around these two-tier construction companies. That word gets around very quickly of who you are.
Yeah, nice. So hey, look, our half an hour is almost up, but if someone is looking for a premium electrical contractor, specifically if there's tier 2 construction companies out there who are looking for someone like yourself to engage with, how do people get in contact with you in Rohan?
Mate, obviously pretty simple. Obviously you can contact us on our websites and socials, Electrical Solutions for You, or www.es4u.com.au. But obviously, direct email is always a good way to get in contact with me. Rohan, ROHAN at es4u.com.au, and we can always establish a nice meal somewhere or a quick coffee, and see if we can't have a conversation, see where it can lead us.
Nice. And so, what's next for ES4U? What are your plans what are your growth plans over the next couple of years, Rohan?
Yeah, as you said before, we did get hit at the start of that COVID window, and it's probably taken us the last 7 months to build that back up. And it's really Ines and I learning to understand how to operate and run a business. We were two tradesmen that sort of just started something from nothing, met each other after a 2-year relationship. And just that's where it's lifted off. And, I'm very grateful to have him in my life. He's a great bloke and very honest and true character. And I learned that in my last company, a partnership that fell apart, how it affects the running of a business. So it's very key to make sure you can trust who you're working with. But we've worked hard over the last 6-7 months. We did downsize a little bit there, but then that was to redirect where we wanted to head with our business. And we've spent 6 or 7 months redirecting it to a point where we've got enough. We've facilitated a lot of work on our books. We've got a fair bit coming up. So I think we've got a nice big memorial hall that we conducted over in Bowral. We're doing a development over in Marrickville at the moment, another one in North Sydney. So we've got about 6 or 7 months worth of work on our books at the moment. But mate, always looking for that next opportunity and that next project to work on. There's, as someone always ever taught me, never say no. But I never say no to a job I know I can take on and complete to the client's request. So, mate, the next 3 or 4 months is a big period for us with a lot of work on. So we're actually looking forward to it. The start of the year, I think the start of the year has been hard for everyone. We didn't expect it coming out of last year to be as hard as it was at the start of this year, but we're coming into a real good patch here that we're going to use to flow on for probably the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Great, mate. Well, it's been really nice to get to know you and Ines just a little bit over the last few months. And the reason why the partnership works well is that because Kiwis are awesome, Rohan. That's why.
Yeah, I've learned that the hard way, Martin. I don't know if obviously Ines. The one thing I've learned about Kiwis is they know how to talk. It's probably the biggest problem I've had with Ines is trying to move him on from a conversation sometimes. But he always knows how to. The best thing about him is he always knows how to lighten up a room, and he always knows how to walk in a room and make himself noticeable, and people seem to enjoy when he's around. So, mate, can't ask for more.
Awesome. No worries. Hey, look, Rohan, our time's up. It's been absolutely wonderful to connect with you today. And if anyone wants a premium quality electrical contractor, ES4U, they're based in Sydney, give Rohan and Ines a call, and they will do a great job for you. So until next week, from my sales heart to yours, remember, a sales fit business is a healthy business. Ciao for now.